Okay, I am going to call to order the Town of Andover Board of Selectmen regular meeting for Tuesday, November 12th. We're getting started promptly at 7 o'clock tonight. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right. Our next item is public speak, and we're going to move on. The first person that we're going to let speak is Dave Gustanian. Actually, Dave, no, I want to let you speak. Please don't speak about the candidacy.
Okay.
All right.
Nothing for me then, Jeff.
All
Thanks.
right. Beata, same issue. Okay, you're good. All right, we'll go to Alicia Lee. Anything for public speak, Alicia? I think she's having problems connecting. We'll come back to her. Linda Fish.
All set.
All right. Liz Lokech. Okay, she's not. Shannon Loudon.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks. I'm just here to express my support for Alicia Lee for the vacancy on the board. Demographically, I believe that the vacancy should be filled by a woman. And Alicia is the candidate that, as far as I know, was selected by the Republican Town Committee for its endorsement. The position, as far as I know, cannot be filled by a Democrat. And all three candidates on tonight's agenda are registered Republicans. If you don't choose Alicia tonight, it will be the second time that you will have rejected the Republican Town Committee's endorsed candidate. And I don't think that's the best way to go about it. Thanks.
Scott Soyette.
I want to basically reiterate what Shannon said. One thing really in favor of Alicia is she's actually done the job. Everything I've heard was she was great at it. So I'd love to see her take the role. That's it.
Thank you. Kate McIntosh, Greenhouse.
Hi. Here for a couple of reasons tonight. One, just to express that I would really like us to have a tri-board meeting. I know you guys have it on your agenda for tonight. Would love if we could, decide on a date for that in the near future. And then additionally, just to express my support for Beata. I know she's been in our town for a few years. We are often eye to eye and often on opposing sides of political things, but she's a great person. She would bring a woman's perspective to the board and also a mother of young children, which is something that you guys don't currently have. So just here to support her. Thank you.
Liz Lokech has your hand up, if you can speak now.
Yeah, I couldn't shut off my audio. I just want to say hello, and if I could, for the record, could I just tell the correct spelling of my name? I just went and read back through a few months worth of meeting minutes, and it's all spelled wrong. So if I could just correct that for the record.
Sure,
It's
go ahead.
It's Lokiec. I mean, I don't expect history to be fixed, but just for going forward. Thank you.
Kathy Mike Plazzi.
Good evening. I just have one thing. As secretary of the Andover Republican Town Committee, I forwarded a letter of endorsement from the ARTC to endorse Alicia Lee as the committee's choice for the Board of Selectmen's position to replace Republican Selectman Paula King. Thank you.
Okay. Celeste Willard.
Thanks, Jeff. Good evening, everyone. I'm just here to offer my support, along with my husband, Steve, our support for Beata for the vacancy for the Board of Selectmen. I've worked with Beata in a number of different things in town, and she's for this town. I think she would be a great addition to the board. She's definitely proven that she is involved and wants to see this town move forward. And I'm just here to offer my support.
Okay, Bill Penn. All right, Bill, we'll come back to you. Stephen King?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here to support the ARTC nominated choice for Board of Selectmen, Alicia Lee. I'd also like to remind everybody that I would like to see these meetings in person and also with an option for an online option for those who can't attend. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for the support of the recent election. Even though I barely did any campaigning, I think we did real well, and I'll see you again in 2 years.
Kimberly Person?
I'm all set, thank you.
All right. Joseph Godwin?
All set. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Alicia Lee? Let's see if it's working.
All
out.
set, thank you.
Okay. Joanne Ebert? Okay.
Joanne, you're on mute.
Linda Armstrong?
Hard time getting.
There you go. We'll go
Can you-
back to Joanne Ebert. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to say that it really shows a lot of class with Stephen. I mean, I'm here to listen to everything tonight. Didn't plan on talking much, but I think it shows a really lot of class that Stephen King has continued to be really involved in all of the meetings and showing himself and coming to support people and being involved in the town. I love to see people like that, and that shows a lot of class by him. Thank you. It shows he really is interested.
Linda Armstrong? Okay, sorry. Leanne Hutchinson?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, and then I'm assuming 2, 3, 4, 5 is Attorney O'Brien? If not, you're free to public speak. Okay, did I miss anyone?
Hi, Jeff. It's Jerry Cremay calling.
Oh, hi, Jerry.
How you doing?
Good.
I just want to thank you, and the people that I want to especially thank are the people who have run for this vacancy on the Board of Selectmen. It shows you've got really good people in this town, people who are willing to donate their time and work hard and do what it takes to make this town a better place. I was a little disappointed that here it is, the second round, and we're still faced with a vacancy. I think that in a case like this, since that seat has to be a Republican seat and a Republican has to be in it, I think it's only makes sense to me that you go with the Republican Town Committee's endorsed candidate. I mean, I'm looking at it from both sides. As a Republican or a Democrat, it's embarrassing to go out in public and still have this difficulty. I believe the 4 select people should have a conversation, a discussion, and make a choice. And that's all I have to say. I know it's not an easy choice. It's a very difficult choice because you have such good people that are running for it and vying for it. So do your best and see if you can produce a winning candidate. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else that I missed? Megan Lally? I don't think I got you.
Jeff, we're trying to get Carol Lee to be able to speak for the Recreation Commission.
Okay.
Can she speak under my account?
I think we just let her in, so.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Megan, Carol, unmute yourself and you should be able to speak.
Okay, I am unmuted now.
There you go.
Okay, let me see, make sure my volume is up. I do apologize. It's taken me a while to get in here. I just want to speak on the town proposed credit card use policy. Currently, the Recreation Commission votes as a whole on how we're spending our budget that is given to us by the Board of Finance. Right now, with this proposed credit card use policy, we are the only appointed board that would be under jurisdiction of a town employee. So the designated supervisor's area of responsibility. We were told initially that we are an advisory board to the community/senior center director. And now it appears that we're under her jurisdiction as far as the budget. And again, we're the only appointed board that is on this list. I have the entire Recreation Commission here with me tonight. They can all speak through my computer here, just to let you know, they are all opposed. We have the 5 members and 2 alternates. In the past, we have voted at our meetings how to spend our funds. We vote as a commission, and then those minutes are given to the treasurer along with a signed off credit card use form. So it's not just one person making the decision. As a commission, we are making those decisions how to spend the fund. Would anyone else like to hear?
Hi, this is Anne Marie Daigle. I'm vice chair of the Rec Commission, and I agree with the statements that Carol made, and also just not sure why we have a separate budget than the Community Senior Center. Why would we be asking for permission from that organization?
Anyone else?
Linda?
Hi, this is Robert Post. I feel the same way as Carol does, the rest of the committee, your own budget. That's how I'm gonna vote.
Okay. All right, I understand. We'll sit there and address that when we get to the credit card item on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep,
Thank you.
no problem. All right, did I miss anyone else? Okay, so let's move on to item 3, additions and changes to the agenda. Anybody? Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we push item 7, appointment of a new Board of Selectmen candidate, to our December meeting.
I'll second that.
All right. Do we have any other changes, or we'd like to talk about this one right now? Okay. For discussion purposes, we had an email thread going that started on October 23rd by Carol Lee. She brought to our attention that there was vacancies with instructions on how to submit letters. It was not posted. Jeff Murray responded on that on the 23rd, where he said, I would suggest keeping it open for the month of November and only accept letters of interest during that time. That was followed up by a response from me. I said, if we do this, we will not appoint our 5th member till December. Are all Board of Selectmen members okay with this? Carol, please provide a list of potential candidates, so on and so forth. Followed up by a response back from Jeff Murray on Tuesday, October 29th. My suggestion is to review all new candidates from here on forward. Stephen King and Joseph Godwin should not be considered. They both applied, went to a vote, and were not selected. I am fine with December. It gives new people a chance to apply and to be considered. That was followed up with Ann Creme on the 29th of October, saying, I agree with Jeff that we should only accept new applicants. A deadline of November 30th will give a full month for applications and then vote in December. We could have a special meeting at the start of December if we want. That was followed up by an email from Scott. It was my understanding at the last Board of Selectmen meeting that we should, and this is also on October 29th. It was my understanding at the last Board of Selectmen meeting that we would be selecting candidates our November meeting. I got letters of intent from Dave Gastanian and Beata Gadomski. I understand that there are 3 other interested parties, but I have not received any other letters of intent as of today. For now, please plan on a November date to choose the final candidates. Jeff Murray responded, why rush? Let's take every opportunity to make anyone interested can apply. All on October 29th. So after that, we sat there and Carol Lee put in a letter that is in the River East. It's on page 4 of our packet. That states that Board of Selectmen vacancy, any Andover elector who is not a Democrat and is interested in serving on the Board of Selectmen for a term ending November 16th, 2027 should send a letter of interest to the town of Andover, care of Board of Selectmen vacancy, 17 School Street, Andover, Connecticut, or email a letter to the town clerk at andoverct.org. Note, due to the minority representation appointment in the town charter, the candidate cannot be a registered Democrat. So we've posted that in the paper. I feel it's inappropriate to sit there and vote on this after we had that discussion. We agreed that we were going to move it to December, and now we're here today considering to put these new appointments up. So I would like to call this for a vote. So anybody else have anything else to delete before we vote? Just or add anything? Ann, Jeff, Scott? Okay. Anybody else would like to talk about moving this to December or keeping it today?
No, Jeff, I think given the posting in the River East, I think we just, I think it's just prudent that we move it to December.
Okay, I agree with you. All right, all those in favor of eliminating item 7? Aye.
Aye.
4-0. All the candidates and the members that came, so Beata and Alicia and Dave, I apologize, but this was something that had been discussed, but I felt it was extremely important to put it out on the record as to why we sat there and decided to move this to December. I hope everyone understands that. I would also ask the public out there to there will be a Republican appointed to this board. And I'm asking, I think we have 3 great candidates, to be perfectly honest, 3 great candidates. But if there is someone else out there that might be interested in serving their community and is smart and has common sense, I would ask them to apply, because it does not hurt to apply. And I'm extremely sincere about this. I want everyone to apply. So if you have friends out there and they would be considered, you think they would be good for town government, and maybe they don't want to run for this, because this is not an election. This is an appointment. And I hope everyone understands this. This is an appointment. It's not an election. There's no requirement. It's 4 members voting. We just have to find one candidate that 3 of us can agree on. So if you have friends out there, please ask them to apply. I think it would be great. Okay. All right, let's move on to item 4, boards and commission presentations. Eric, do we have anything?
I don't have any that I know of.
Okay. Item 5, appointments. Do we have any appointments to make?
None.
Item 6, any resignations, and please tell me no.
Yes. Diane Grenier announced today that she was resigning from the library board due to life complications. Let's put it that way.
That is a sad day.
That is a sad day. She's
That
put in
is
a
a sad day.
amount of time into this town.
And I think the entire community should thank Diane Grenier for all her years of doing Andover this and that, and to sit there and put the time in to come to most of our meetings. And I understand that she has some issues going on, and my prayers are definitely with her. So, and stop with the resignations. All right. Item 8, town administrators report. And just for the record, I assume that you dated your report incorrectly.
Yep, certainly did.
All right. Go ahead. You can give it to us now.
All right. So I'm going to share my screen and just talk you through a couple things. You should see the screen with my administrator's report. First item up, just notification that Diane did resign from the library board. The second item up, and we're going to discuss it a little bit later, but it's mostly a Board of Finance that should be driving the train on this, is that there should be some dates proposed for a meeting between the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, and Board of Education. That's enshrined in the charter change that just came out. It was supposed to be in October, but since that's before the charter change, there's not a lot we can do about it other than moving that meeting up as much as possible. So the proposed dates are listed there: December 3rd, December 12th, December 16th. You know, it sounds to me at this point like December 3rd seems to be the most popular among Board of Ed, Board of Finance. But if the Board of Selectmen has a strong opinion on which dates they would most prefer the meeting to be, I will happily pass that on to Mark Brinker. That's the first thing, and we can discuss that a little bit later. So I sent around to all the boards today what my proposal was for the timing for this year's budget process, since a lot of things have changed as the new charter takes effect. And the new charter takes effect immediately for things related to the budget. The resident state trooper did arrest a resident on Center Street for voyeurism and a couple other things. Hopefully he'll make big rocks into little rocks for a while in the penal system. Additionally, we had an individual decide to do a large burn of leaves in his backyard yesterday that the fire department and fire marshal had to respond to. I did put out another warning on the website and the alert system just to remind people that they're not supposed to be burning stuff right now. We're still in an extreme fire, red flag warning as far as the state's concerned. So please don't burn anything. Still working on the destratification fans for the gym. I still don't have the final quote back from Seaward Electric. But hopefully I will have that this week. Stuff related to the community center. I have a call into our congressional office asking what they think the status is likely to be for the congressional appropriation that we requested. The answer I got back was probably not until sometime in the spring there would be a decision. They seem to be a little bit depressed. So they kind of hinted that there might be a low probability of success at this point. So that's all I know. There's also something later in the packet talking about sound dampening for that facility, as well as the town hall. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, we started looking into what it would cost. The senior group has been watching movies in town buildings as an organized group for quite a while. That's not technically legal. So we started looking into what it costs to make that legal. The bottom line is it's about $1,500 a year for the annual license for centers like ours. So it's not a small, so at some point the board should make a decision whether they think that's a valuable thing and worth the money or not. We did sign the final paperwork for the ARPA Senior Center grant. So we have about $10,000 available right now, and that we should be on the way to spending by December 31st. So we'll discuss that again later in the packet. We do finally, as of today, have the fiber connection to the new building up and working. We don't have everything hooked up, but we at least have the Wi-Fi working in that building through a fiber connection. So that's positive. So the new CEO is hired and in training. So he's working both on the CEO end of things and also on blight enforcement. It's still going to be months before he's really capable of taking over for Jim Hallisey. So that's underway. I am planning on signing the NECOG contract now regarding the animal control officer, since we legally can hire them as our animal control officer, thanks to the charter change. So that was good. The other thing I wanted to talk to the board about is there were a lot of people that were unhappy with our decision as to how we bid out the roadside mower. So what is the board's feeling about the disposition of the plow truck? And how would the board like us to, I mean, it seems like our options are send it to the auction house, try to bid it out ourselves, or use govdeals.com. You know, and I'm open for any solution you want to do. I just don't want to hear about it after the fact. So if you all have guidance on how you want to do that, I'd be happy to comply.
Hey, Eric, why don't we try a round on Gov Deals with a reserve and see what we get, and then maybe if that doesn't pan out, maybe we just send it to auction and we get what we can. That would be my recommendation.
All right.
I don't know what everybody else thinks, but that would be my recommendation.
That's fine, but Eric, I would ask you, where does Jay feel the town would get the most money?
Jay thinks the most likely person to buy that truck is a town that's desperate and needs a backup truck. So he thinks we'd be better off doing it ourselves and putting it out on the Public Works listserv, but you know.
Okay, can he give us the number that he believes he would get, so that we could go slightly under, but set the reserve that Jeff is requesting?
Sure. So you just want it set with a reserve, what Jay thinks it's likely to actually sell.
No, what Jay likely thinks it would sell for, the way that he anticipated doing it, so that if it goes out on the board that Jeff is expressing, and we have a reserve set for it, we at least can get close to it. And you know, listen, it's a bid process, so you're setting the reserve, you're going to get at least the reserve. You may not get anything. So.
And to add to that, if Jay knows that there's people interested in the truck, you can always tell them it's on Gov Deals. So.
Yep. Okay. All right. So next up, Bunker Hill Bridge design. There were six companies that sent proposals to be the bridge constructor for Bunker Hill Bridge. Of those six, 5 were disqualified for failure to meet the bid requirements, which is really unfortunate and really picayune. But since the State Department of Transportation sent somebody from their contracts administration unit and their engineering department to oversee us doing the bids. That's the way it is. So we already have the construction monitoring firm selected, so that's under. We're still looking at around February 15th to start the utility relocation and building the first water coffer dam. So we are still on schedule for that. The contractor that is selected has a good working relationship with the construction inspection firm. So that should make things go slow or go quickly. And at the end of the day, the town isn't paying for any of this anyway. It's being funded by state and federal tax dollars, not town tax dollars.
All right, can you go back to this for a second? Because I just got a question. And by the way, CDR or CD McGuire is no relation to me. So are you telling me that we had 6 applicants bid and 5 were disqualified?
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
And the bid was overseen by CD McGuire?
No, the bid was overseen by Close Jensen and Miller, who is the firm the state hires to manage the design by state process for bridge design. Okay. CDR McGuire is the firm that actually did the final design of the bridge, and they are the company that has to certify that the applicants, the bidders, all produce a competent bid. But when you do a bid opening, the state provides you a checklist. And basically you go down and ensure that everything that is on the checklist is submitted. And whenever there's something that's in the public notice and that's not submitted, the bid is rejected.
Understood. No, the way you wrote it, it just appeared that CD McGuire was doing the entire process. So that's okay. Close Jensen was the overseers of the bid.
Right. And I mean, I'm doing the bid opening with Close Jensen and Miller and the DOT, so it's not like I'm not in the room. We're all in agreement on it. It's an annoyance to me that the companies couldn't read, the notice of record and comply in a reasonable fashion.
Okay. All right. No problem. You can keep going.
Yep. So those are the major things that I have in this meeting, and I'll certainly take any questions that you all have relative to my report.
Tree removal for Bunker Hill is scheduled and there's no hiccups on that?
It's in progress.
Okay. All right. I'll let you settle that up later. Anybody else have any questions for Eric?
Yeah, just one quick question, Eric. Regarding the Long Hill Bridge design, we're engaged with the state, right, for a temporary light at Hendy and Route 6, or is that kind of off the table at this point?
It's not off the table, but every time they look at it, they tell us the traffic warrants don't warrant a signal at that intersection. So at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to do it.
I mean, even a temporary basis during the Long Hill construction, because all that traffic is going to get funneled down to Hendy, and then with the camp with the camp reopening, we're going to have an enormous amount of traffic at that intersection.
I've made that point multiple times, but so do I think it's going to happen? Probably not.
That's going to be a problem. So,
no question. No question.
How do we approach this? I mean, is there any other avenues we can pursue to try to get at least a temporary light there?
I mean, your only real avenue, if the DOT box, is to go after it legislatively, and get MD Rahman and Steve Weir to try to intercede on the town's behalf. They can make inquiries through the DOT's legislative liaison and maybe put a little pressure on them. And I certainly intend to do that, but at this point, the DOT hasn't said they're not doing it yet. So I'm kind of not wanting to push that button until they actually come out and say they're not going to do it. And what I would really like to do is get them to agree to a permanent light there, not just a temporary light. But, I don't know. I mean, the reality is a temporary light wouldn't decrease the accident rate there, but it probably would, make traffic flow from that area better.
Agreed. I just want to keep some attention on that issue to make sure that we follow up on that down the road. So,
Hey, I have a vested interest because that's going to be my commute every day. The whole time the bridge is under construction.
yeah,
So
I mean,
want
all those left turns out of there it's going to be difficult without a light there. I can tell you that right now.
DOT
Yep.
needs a deadline. Please get a I know they don't believe in deadlines and they won't listen to little old Landover giving them a deadline, but if we're gonna get a legislative issue to potentially solve this, we're gonna need some time.
Yeah, because one thing I've noticed in the last 6 months is the amount of people returning to work and the amount of traffic on Route 6 is significantly increased. And even the traffic on 384 has increased in the morning. So we really need to keep an eye on this and make sure that we have something there in place when we take that bridge out.
And Eric, just so the public is aware, I believe the last time that we sat there and submitted this to the DOT and they rejected us, they said there were no fatalities at that location. Wasn't that one of the points they made?
No, I mean, basically what they say is it's only a crisis for about 2.5 hours a day. So there's this thing called level of service, which is the time it takes to get through an intersection. And they go back to the Krog, study, which was the only serious traffic engineering study at that intersection. And what that study showed is that for about an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the evening, that intersection has a level of service of an F, basically. It's a scale that runs A through F. And their argument is that since the majority of the day, the level of service is in an acceptable range, that they're not going to put a light on something for only that short a period of time. So that's been the DOT's position. And that's a standard that runs along with the federal, transportation, warrants.
Okay. Anything else for Eric? Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question that maybe you'll cover it later, but under town hall community room, you had sentence, I would like to consider purchasing permanent furniture for the room to make it a bit more professional. What do you mean by permanent furniture?
So here's the problem we have is that, we're talking about going back to in-person meetings. And that works great if you can leave your in-person system set up. You put the OWL meeting camera, you mount one on the wall, you put one in the center, and you have a third microphone. That way you can hear things, you can see everybody, and it works good for a hybrid meeting, which is in-person plus virtual. The problem comes in is that because a bunch of groups are still using it, they come in and disconnect everything and push it all aside, and then every meeting and group that comes in and tries to use that then takes up a half an hour of my time reassembling everything and making the system work again. And I don't necessarily want to be coming back in here at 7 because the Planning and Zoning Commission is meeting and needs to set the room up for hybrid. So my suggestion is that since we have a community center now, and I'll stop sharing. Since we have a community center and we have essentially an equivalent room there, that we do what most towns are and have a permanent dedicated meeting room in that space and set it up to look fairly professional. That would be my recommendation. Certainly, this is the only town hall I've gone to that doesn't have any kind of permanent meeting space for the town.
Yeah, this is something I agree with Eric on. I think we need to make that room a dedicated meeting space for all our organizations like the Board of Finance, Planning and Zoning, and, you know, other committees and commissions that have meetings. Every other town has one and we really don't. We're kind of meeting on temporary tables, and it would make sense probably doing something permanent in the future if we're going to do hybrid meetings.
Other small towns often have to shift stuff around like we do, but I know the larger towns all have permanent stuff. Well, that's a good thought.
Any other questions for Eric? Okay. Item 9, old business. 9A, community center signage discussion.
So we left that off a couple months ago. I know you wanted some input on what the sign was going to look like for the center of the community center. Has any more progress been made on that?
Obviously not.
Who was gonna do it?
I think Paula was involved right before she resigned. And I think that's why it kind of fell off the radar, to be honest.
Right.
I'll sit there and get some layouts for you guys. I'll do
Well,
that.
you know what? Let me talk to Paula and see what she had at the time, and maybe we can pick up from where she left off.
All right. We can do that. A discussion on 9B, discussion of blight and level of involvement.
I'm just keeping that on the agenda for visibility. I don't have anything really particular to discuss about that right now, other than to say, you know, we're going to be slowly transitioning to a new blight officer and a new CEO.
Well, I don't mind that you just keep it there, but I did like the report that was provided monthly. I do think that's beneficial, even if it's not updated. What it does is just make us aware of these are the potential locations, and we can all understand it. So if you can include
You
that,
want to add back the report?
Yeah.
Okay.
Item 9C, King Property Agreement to split cost of establishing monumentation.
Okay, so I'll take that one too. So we had, as we all know, we went to town meeting and the town meeting approved the setting the boundary between the King property and the town property, and the and carving out the area right by Burnap Brook and the parking area to be town property. The problem came in is that they've never pinned that. So there are actually no boundary monumentation for that. And Mr. King did not feel like it was solely his responsibility to pin that. So my suggestion is that we split the cost of monumentation with Mr. King. Mr. King has agreed to that. And we get the surveyor out there to pin it right now and then finish the transaction and put this thing to bed. That's my suggestion. But I don't know how the board feels about that approach.
What's the town's cost, Eric?
About $1,200.
Let's get it done.
I make a motion that we authorize Eric to enter into agreement to split the cost for establishing a monumentation on the King property with the King family.
I'll second
Second
that.
that.
Okay. We'll give it to Scott. All those in favor? Aye. 4-0. Okay.
Okay, done deal.
9D, Burnack clock discussion. before we get into this and before we even talk about this, if we decide to sit there and take the current community room and make it a meeting room, the clock might fit there. All this discussion about the clock drives me insane because I don't know where to put it. No one knows where to put it. It's a beautiful antique. We're going to be storing it for the owner. We're going to be paying insurance for the owner. If you sit there and we decide as a board to sit there and make the community room a meeting room, then you may have a spot for the clock where it will be visible to the community during meetings and may make some sense. But other than that, honestly, it just keeps coming up on our meetings and we keep kicking it down the road, and we're going to just keep kicking it because it's a difficult play. It's difficult to put it in the right spot. But I'm just throwing that out there. No. And we don't have anything else on the agenda related to this that's just being held over because we never make a decision on it.
Well, at the last meeting, you asked me to confirm with the insurance company, with Kerma, that there was minimal or zero. I had said it would not cost us anything to have the clock on the property. And they confirmed that that fits under both their fine art clause, and there's one other clause in our contract. So they will in fact ensure that for the value provided, and I gave them the appraisal value if you make the decision to put that either in the community center or wherever you want to put that. So that was the only thing I had to contribute to the discussion. That was brought up at the Community Center Advisory Board. There was some discussion or correction, the Senior Center Advisory Board. There was some discussion over that, but ultimately, I'm not sure they ever reached a conclusion. Some people were in favor of it and some people weren't. So that's all I have.
Okay, but no cost to the town if we house the antique.
No insurance cost.
No
to the
insurance.
town.
Yeah.
Correct.
Jeff, I like your idea of putting it in the meeting space. I think that might be the good compromise going forward.
I mean, if we do it and we display it correctly, it'll be a nice addition to a dais that you could set up.
Well, one concern I have is that down the road in the community center, there's going to be events and all kinds. I mean, we don't know who's going to be in there. I mean, we're going to know, but I mean, there'll be maybe some wedding parties and things like that. And, I'd hate to see it get damaged, and it would probably be a safer spot to put it in the meeting space.
I agree. It's something that we should think about.
I spoke with Jeff Ballard and the owner of the clock. He came too, and they had chosen the space in that smaller room that has the couches in it currently. The concern was to not have it where it would get the heat and air conditioning from the mini split. And that's why they picked that one. And then I've also had contacted Dennis and asked him to get in touch with the owner. I gave him all his contact information and asked him to set up a contract because the owner does want to have a contract with the town on the care of the possession of the clock. So I gave all that information to Dennis. I don't know if he's done anything about it yet.
I would hope Attorney O'Brien didn't, because until we understand exactly where we're putting it, there's no reason to waste his time. So good that he has the information, but I wouldn't. I mean, we've been kicking this around for almost
Why don't
a
we
year.
vote on it then tonight, Jeff?
I thought it had been decided where to put it.
I thought that Ann's room that she had picked with Jeff Ballard and the owner was where we're going to put it.
So
Previously
in the senior, and no, let's just go through it. We
the meeting room.
Well, I don't know what the room is called. It's the little one with the couches in it. Is that the
Yeah.
meeting room?
meeting room.
Right, but that also implies
It's
you're
going in the
going to take the bookshelf and do something else with the bookshelf. So where are you proposing to relocate the bookshelf if you're
Okay,
going to put that there?
since we've kicked this down the road a long time, let's kick it down the road again because I honestly think that we really, if we're gonna sit there and furnish the meeting room, it will go best there because Jeff Murray is 100% correct that that space will be rented and we will not always have supervision there. And I would hate to sit there and see an antique like clock like that. I mean, until we sit there and have our own meeting space, you can at least lock up the meeting space because if we sat there and did it, now the only question I have in my head is that space need to be used for anything else? But if it only is used for meetings, which I think it's a great use of that space, you then get to control access to the room. So I think there's other things that need to be done. I don't think we've had total agreement on the senior center and community room location. So let's just push it down the road one more time, and the board needs to come to an agreement on what we want to do as far as a meeting space. And if we do come together on a meeting space, that would be my preferred location for that clock.
So just to add to this, Eric, do you have any kind of concept or a drawing or anything that you're thinking of for a layout in that room for meetings?
No, I mean, I think I know. I mean, I think the orientation is going to follow based off of where the screen is and where I would assume we would permanently mount the OWL meeting camera. But so I would have assumed you would be looking at a U-shaped seating area around there, and then the audience would be behind that. That would be what I would have assumed. That way everybody can see if there's other participants up on the screen, and you have remote participation. So that's how I would have envisioned that, in a meeting space to take the largest essentially commission we have, which is around 7 members. So something designed to seat 7, and then with a little platform at the end for somebody that wants to come up and speak.
So my thought is let's kind of come up with a plan for that room and then where we would put the clock in that room. And then let's look at Ann's, where her and Jeff Ballard and the owner talked about the other location. And then we can discuss it next month and just make a decision. Does that sound fair to everyone?
Yes.
We can make the decision next month.
Yes, but I just look at the two, let's look at the two options and then we'll decide.
Okay. 9E solar at Andover Elementary School.
Okay, again, at the last meeting, you asked me to find out to the best of my abilities what the ages of the roofs were in the Andover Elementary School. So I put from you the packet, everything we have in the building files, plus a sketch that I got from the school, which says what ages they think the roofs are. So that's pretty much all the information that I have. I can certainly share that now if you want to look at it. It was in your packet. I can bring that up if you want to see that.
All of them were done in 2016, correct? Except for one small roof.
Some was 2004, 2000, and 2016, I think.
No, but you got to look at where their solar panels were going to be put.
Yeah.
So, Eric, do you have the solar panel layout?
No,
It would have been in last month's meeting.
but it was going to be not in, I can pull that up too. It was going to not be on roof A, which was the one on the gymnasium, but it was going to be on what this looks like at roof B, roof C, roof F, and roof I were the roofs that were identified for that, which is basically all the large flat roofs.
All right, let me pull it up on my end.
You want me to just share it?
Yeah, that would be better.
If you can.
Yep. Okay, can you see it now?
Yeah.
So they
But-
don't want to use roof A because gymnasiums tend to not be designed with the roof loading that can support additional weight. So they ruled that out right off the bat for structural reasons. And they were suggesting basically B, C, F, and I as the major roofs. As far as I know.
Okay, but again, can we sit there and see the solar layout so we can match those up? Or it doesn't even matter. If they're gonna put it on I and I is a 2004 roof, we should consider not putting it on I, or we should consider thinking about roofing that so that when we put the solar up there, we don't have future problems, because the 2016 roofs don't bother me, but in my head, those 2016 roofs, I don't think we did all that. I mean,
I
that
tried to read through the clerk of the works report and match it up. But I didn't have I only have a partial report from them, so I just don't have the information in the building files to really get this, so I don't have a great.
Okay. All right. And I'm gonna just because you find problems as you're working through it. Eric, all the links, or the link for the October meeting does not contain the October packet. It contains the November packet. So the link is the same link across all of our calendar things. We have to address that, because the packet should remain with the calendar link. Just because I was looking, because in October we have the solar layout you put in the October packet. So I can't pull up the October packet even going on the October date. So that's something that we have to look at from the website perspective.
But Eric, do you have the layout for the solar?
Yeah, let me pull that up. I just gotta find it where it is in all my files.
And this, this is just pushing back to understand. Here we go.
Okay, so you should be able to see that layout.
Yeah,
I can't
just
show them both at the same time.
no, that's all right. Just increase the size of that. Okay, so you have that small part of the roof, and you have the whole part of the roof to the right. So if you circled America, it would be the part of the roof that's all the way to the right. And there's a small little section, and I believe that might be over the kitchen. And I think I do remember that we couldn't do something. Previously when we roofed that, they didn't want to do anything over the kitchen. But Adrian Mandeville might be a good person to talk to on this, Eric, because he was extremely involved in this project. He assisted greatly from the Board of Finance position that he was in at the time. So we have two sections that are on potentially areas of the roof that are 2004. You can go to that one now. Go to that page. So you got 2000 and 2004 for those two sections.
2002, 2004, yeah.
So it's not that it's not that it's a problem. We want to do this. We should want to do this. We just want to make sure that we're not having a roof problem that comes up to us and we have to move those units off the roof to then re-roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes,
mean, we
it's
only got about
it's-
10 more years on roof I right now before it's, I mean, you look at the replacement schedule on all the other roofs, and you're looking at 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Miss, I was talking to Valerie and she said that that roof I is a different kind of a roof. It's sort of a gravel surface. It's completely different from the other roofs. So maybe that kind of roof lasts longer. I don't know for sure, but it might.
So I'm pretty sure that roof is a hot mopped tar roof with stone.
With
Which
stone.
those typically have a 25 to 35 year roof life.
They're all they're all the same. The question ends up being, and it's positive in that they're the smaller sections of the roof, but we just need to do the due diligence to make sure that we don't get in a position where we're having to lift those panels off that roof to re-roof, and it eats away at all the savings that the school would be generating. So, and the other part too, Eric, is to get with them and make sure that we understand from the solar company, okay, these are the two oldest roofs. What will happen what would be the cost if we only needed to re-roof these two sections? So, well, anyway, that's
Okay,
good.
so what information, so you're not gonna make a decision now. What information do you want me to try to provide for the next meeting?
Just because we've just identified the age of the roofs, get us an estimate of what the cost would be if we have to move those panels from those roofs to get to the roof surface. So, because we have to re-roof it, it's just a question of, can it hold up? And, like Jeff Murray said, if we look at the way they did it, it was a 30-year period on all those other roofs, and we ended up re-roofing. Eventually, we're going to have to re-roof E, I, F, and I know those are pitched roofs and shingled, but eventually we'll have to re-roof those as well at some point in time.
So Jeff, what my concern is roof I, if you look at back, if Eric can bring up the solar plan again real quick. If you look at where they say interconnection point, all the wiring for those panels are going to go across that roof I. So that's going to be a problem down the road, because if you have to re-roof that roof, I don't know how much we're going to have to interrupt all those conduits and everything that's run across that roof to that interconnection point. You have a lot of solar panels and a lot of power going across to that spot. So that's just something we need to voice our concerns about.
That's the reason why it's good to have an electrical engineer on the board, because he understands those things. So,
But you see, like all those panels on the left are all going to run across to that interconnection point. All that stuff. So if the interconnection point was on the west side of the building, I wouldn't be as concerned. And I know why they're putting them on I, because of that interconnection point, and it's on the way. So we need to make the decision if we want to do this, and you want to put panels on roof I. Do we move ahead and try to replace that roof ahead of time, or do we, move ahead with this project? And most likely, you're going to be pulling those panels in 10 years.
So the recommendation should be to re-roof those two roofs before they do panels.
Or you move your interconnection point so you don't have all your power wiring going across roof I.
Well, it's also a timing issue.
Is that where there's other panels that are down in that building in the cellar there, though? I think that's where all their connections are.
Yeah, but that's where they're going to put all so basically what these are, they're DC panels,
Right.
and it basically converts DC to AC, and it matches the phasing to the power. So there's inverters that go on that. They're going to probably be on that wall right there where they're saying interconnection point. So all that wiring, all that DC wiring is going to go across the roof to those inverters.
It will not actually be DC wiring. This system is designed with microinverters, one per panel.
So you're still going to have AC going across the roof.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So I didn't know if it was a DC to AC system or if it was a completely rectified and inverted. That's got to be a little expensive trying to match I'm going to get an engineering speak now, but trying to match your phasing on the roof to all those panels is going to be, it seems more expensive than putting large inverters on the walls on that interconnection point. So I don't know.
The problem they ran into, Jeff, on this is that, on the commercial side, when you look at fairly large arrays, all the big inverters are three-phase inverters.
Correct. Correct.
And because there's no three-phase power here, they would have had to have, probably 20 or 25 inverters, to do it if they didn't go the microinverter route. So their engineer basically said the only way you can make this work, cost effectively, and fit in the state program is to do it with microinverters. The thing I'll warn you is that they're pretty close. Talking to Green Skies, this is pretty close to being a non-profitable job for them. So, I think they're not going to go through a lot more hoops before they drop this as a proposal. Right or wrong, and I'm not, I'm just, because they had to downsize the system considerably from what they wanted because it's only single phase, and they had to go to the microinverters. He basically said it's already a very marginally profitable job for us to install anyway, given what the reimbursement rates are for the state. So I don't think they're going to take a lot of other changes before they say no.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like trying to pull all those single phase conductors across that roof is going to be it's going to be a costly endeavor.
So let's just Eric and Jeff, let's sit there and get to the Board of Education, any information and any guidance we can to sit there and make this decision, the correct decision, because I would hate to sit there and see us say, okay, you can go do it. And then we end up having a roof problem in 2 or 3 years. And it, whatever, like I said before, whatever savings we have is gone because we have to now move the panels to replace roofs. So,
well, another thing, Jeff, is if we got to pull all those conductors off the roof, we're going to lose the use of those panels for that period of time. Plus, you're going to have to pay to replace all that wiring. You have to take it out and replace it when we re-roof it. So, and I guarantee they're probably going to rest it right on top of the roof. So it's going to have to be lifted at some point or completely removed and when we replace the roof.
okay.
So would we go ahead and find out what it would cost to get these roofs redone right now?
No, the Board of Education actually has some of that
Well,
information.
let the Board of Education know that that's what they should do.
Well, we will speak to them. I'll speak to Celeste and we'll sit there and, express our concerns that those two roofs are 2000, 2004, I believe, right?
Yeah.
2000 and 2004, and we'll sit there and
I mean,
go ahead,
Jeff,
Eric.
if they can move that interconnection point to another location, I wouldn't be as concerned, but I'm just saying like, all the wiring is going to go across Route 5.
Understood.
Yeah, I mean, the problem comes down is if you think about conduit runs, the wall they're bringing it down is basically the wall where their main electrical interconnect for the building is. So it certainly makes the most sense in terms of that. Could you go down the close wall and punch a large conduit through the classroom across the hallway into the mechanical room? Potentially. It's going to cost more though.
Yeah, and it's probably going to eat into you got 10 years of life pretty much left on that roof anyways. And really, what's your cost savings down the road versus replacing the roof and just putting the solar in after? So.
Okay,
All right.
so Jeff, you're going to talk to Celeste about that?
I'll talk to Celeste. I mean, we need to make, this needs to be decided quickly because it's a granted project, which we would obviously like to sit there and see move forward, but we got to do it correctly. So I will speak with Celeste, and then Jeff Murray, any guidance you can give them would be appreciated.
Right, and for the record, I don't have they have not come up with the final engineered set of plans for doing this anyway. So there's no final layout at this point. There's nothing that says what the structural roof loads are for any of those roofs. So they're not ready to, to fully present this anyway.
Okay,
So,
so
I mean,
we should make them aware, so if they're engineering it, they can sit there and engineer some of the problems that Jeff Murray has identified.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to see the conduit schedule and the pull drawings, like what we're pulling for conductors and, conduit size and everything, to see what the impact on roof eye would be.
So is this information that you would need for them to get a permit to go ahead and put it in?
absolutely.
Or what do they
Yep.
need? Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna give you a standard set of engineering drawings for both electrical, structural, for all the roofs, including conduit layouts, dimensions, wire sizes, inverter capacity, tie-in, and what
Right,
needs
so-
to change.
So they'll give you that, give that to the building official to get their building permit. I don't see too much of what else we need to do.
Well, the board is the building owner, right? The town owns the building. This is clearly a capital project. So you as a board need to say yay or nay whether you want this to happen or not.
I think
Right
the
or
school
wrong.
board is what does that.
No, actually not.
And you can think of it this way, and this is something that I'm going to speak to the Board of Education tomorrow about. Anything that's in the building or attached to the building is part of the building. Anything that's inside the building and movable, no problem. The town owns the structure. The Board of Education manages the structure. Your own attorney said that to us in the last tri-board meeting. So we're not trying to be difficult. And I understand where your focus is. I do understand where your focus is, but we're not trying to be difficult. We're trying to be assistance to make the project correct. So however you want to sit there and believe that and believe what you're dealing with, the building, the structure is owned by the town. Okay. So do we have any other issues on the solar project with AAS? Okay. Item 9F signage, encroachment permit for signage, signs on Route 6. So,
Okay, again, at the last meeting, you asked me for a copy of what the exact sign that they would be putting on Route 6, identifying where the trail location was. And I provided you with what the DEP and DOT will agree to put up for the sign.
okay, so they're putting this Hop River State Park Trail off of Route 6 on
Correct.
going toward Lake Road to where the parking is.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Do you have any problem with an encroachment permit for that and putting that sign?
I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I live on Lake Road, but I don't have a problem with it. Anybody else have a problem with it?
No.
Okay.
And Jeff Murray, anybody? No problems with it? We can go forward with the permit? Okay. All right. 9G, new business, discuss and act upon the following. A, credit card usage discussion, approve policy and forms. Eric, related to the comments by Carol Lee and the Rec Commission, I do believe we need to address that from a standpoint of budgeting, and I understand what they're saying. Forget the credit card usage policy, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
The Rec Commission doesn't need to use the credit card if that's the choice. But the issue of who approves their spending is really their issue. And I think what you meant, and I think what you meant is to just have Tess assist with the bookkeeping related to it.
So when Tess was hired to oversee three things: community center, senior center, and all recreational activities for the town. Now, the rec commission doesn't like that. But remember, 2 years ago, you as a board, or in the last budget, attempted to put in money to hire somebody to assist to make sure things were done well. And the rec commission opposed that to the Board of Finance, and got the Board of Finance to take that out of the budget and repurpose that money for something that the rec commission wanted to do. And so when we talked about this 6 months or a year ago, when we were talking about what the duties of, if we hired a director for that position, what they would oversee, the decision was to have them oversee those three things. That is not popular with the rec commission.
So you're telling us that people are not working well together, is what you're telling us.
Sure, change is always hard.
Yeah.
In my head, I don't care whether you leave the rec commission as a commission in charge, or whether you put that on Tess's to maintain overall responsibility for that. But whichever way you do, it's going to have to be directed by the board, because the rec commission is not going to, they're not going to play with anybody unless they're forced to, if we're being blunt.
Okay. So I don't need you to be blunt in the future. I need you to just be facts. So, okay. So we're gonna deal with this.
Well, Jeff, my understanding was, I mean, we had a senior services committee, we had the rec commission, and Tess was supposed to basically take direction from them. And that was our original discussion.
She's supposed to work with them.
Yeah,
That's-
she's supposed to, so if the rec commission wants to have a concert or an event, she is supposed to assist and help them with that event. But under their direction.
I agree with that, but I don't necessarily know that Tess is sitting there telling them what to do. They're not, are they dealing with Tess at all is really the questions. And this is not something that needs to be debated at this meeting. It needs to be understood, because to me, I look at Tess and I go, you, as an employee, you better be utilizing her, because yes, I greatly appreciate all the volunteers on the rec commission. I appreciate every volunteer that works for this town, and a lot of what gets done within this town gets done by volunteers. But we're trying to put a person in place to sit there and manage certain things and assist with certain things. We need to be using that person. So,
Right. But I would also say that in retrospect, hiring Tess as a part-time employee and expecting her to do all three probably is not realistic either.
okay. And the whole point from my end for that individual and being part-time would be to generate revenue over programs and run more programs and provide more programs and utilize the community senior center more often to generate additional programming revenue. And the rec commission has to be a big part of that. So, because they have the experience and things to do. So, this is a management issue that we have to work together to get people to enjoy working together rather than creating any problems. So we all should sit there and participate in that and work on that issue. So, but going to the money, right? Going to the money. I agree with rec commission, because they have a budget, and unless we choose to not give them a budget, they have a budget to control. They don't need to use a credit card, right?
Then you could simply just say that take the rec commission off the designated supervisors list. You know, and then I'm the only signer on their expenses. If you want to do that, you can certainly do that.
Isn't that how we do it now?
Not really. I mean, the old system was set up so that boards and department heads could make their own expenditures, but the treasurer has been very unhappy about the information she's gotten back in a lot of cases regarding credit card expenditures.
Okay, so take credit cards off of the table. Why can't the rec commission potentially utilize, you know, an Amazon account and pay for that account by check?
They could certainly order stuff through the town's Amazon account anytime they want. They're not restricted from that.
Just from a simple standpoint, I understand we're putting in controls on the credit cards, but why wouldn't you let someone, you know, from the rec commission use the credit card?
We would absolutely let somebody use the credit card. They just have to get the expense signed off before they use it, not afterward, because then you know you're getting the paperwork turned in. And I'm not trying to pick on the rec commission. This policy goes for everybody, including me. You know, and I will admit to some extent, you know, I haven't always submitted the form ahead of a purchase I made as the town administrator. And that's what's got the treasurer kind of wound up, because not everybody is turning in receipts, and they're spending a lot of time tracking down information and balancing the credit cards when we get the monthly statements. So that's the whole point of this, is just to put in place a policy that has the proper administration. And we were more lenient with the old policy, but the fact of the matter is, you know, not enough people are complying with that policy, and the financial office is not getting what they need. So that's what this is an attempt to correct.
Okay, so you have policy set up. All right. I will sit there and I will get with you, Eric, and work on this policy so that we can come back and present it. I'll work with the treasurer to sit there and make sure that it's as simplified as it possibly can be. Because, you know, credit card usage is an ease and inconvenience. So we have to make sure that we're not over regulating what's going on, but we have to I understand what the treasurer is after. We have to make sure that that's effective and that they get their information timely, because, you know, as an accounting department, they don't want to be chasing things down. They want to know where it's going and what it's for. So unless anybody else on this board has an issue with that, that's how I'd like to move forward.
Well, Jeff, I've had a couple discussions with Eric about this, and you know, we should probably identify the 3 or 4 top heavy hitters that are users of that credit card. And you know, like Public Works should probably almost have their own, and a couple other departments have their own. It'd be much easier to break out the charges if we have the charges that's just attached to that one number, so the treasurer can say, look, this is the Public Works number, these are all Public Works charges, instead of trying to figure out at the end of the statement who bought what and for what, and keeping all these slips and trying to backtrack everything. I think it may be more advantageous just to look at who our heavy hitters are and just try to give them their own cards for, you know, like 3 or 4 departments. And anything that's smaller just goes through Eric or, you know, our slip policy.
I think that makes some sense. We'll sit there and look at that.
Okay, thank you.
I know, when Eric sent out this new proposed thing, I sent back an email to him and said, what's the old one look like? Because I didn't know, I wasn't here 5 years ago when this original one was put out. And it doesn't look like there's a huge amount of difference. It looks like the signature from the supervisor and administrator and getting your documentation back in 1 day was the only 2 changes. Is that right, Eric?
That is pretty much correct. Yep.
So
I don't know what the 3 days hadn't been working. Was that?
That's
what happened
obviously,
today.
that's
Because
obviously.
what happens
Eric,
is,
Eric, that's obviously the case, Ann, because the treasurer is asking for changes. So
She asked for this to be changed? Okay.
yes, it's coming from the treasurer, so we got to sit there and deal with that department because they're in control of our record keeping and how it happens. So let's sit there and I like Jeff Murray's idea, honest, I think it's a great idea. I think it's simplistic. It makes
I
sense.
mean, Jay's the supervisor of Public Works. We should give him the responsibility to make
And
appropriate charges to the card.
And then it's Jay's responsibility to reconcile his card.
Well, the card will come in and it will be charged to Public Works to their.
No, it'll be charged to Public Works, but he may have 20 charges on that account and he's got to break them down by where they go. And so now it's taking it off of the accounting department to reconcile the charges and put it on Jay. We still may need some. Let me deal with Eric on it. Jeff Murray, I think that's a good idea. I do.
I mean, just another thing we should do is we have all these recurring charges on the card. We should probably look into either doing, getting a separate account, town account, just for these reoccurring payments. Keep a balance of $5,000 instead of our main account. And we pay those, with either direct deposit or direct withdrawal out of those accounts instead of trying to use the credit card because it's a huge money suck every month on our credit card balance. So that's another thing we should probably look at doing as well.
Okay, we'll sit there and we'll look at all of those issues.
okay, well, can you talk to the treasurer tomorrow? Because she's anticipating this being implemented tomorrow. So I
Yeah.
think she's gonna be a little pissed, so you might want to speak with her.
No problem. I'll be happy to do it, Eric. All right, let's move on to,
So, and just to be clear, so now boards and commissions can spend whatever they want and borrow their credit card whenever they want, as long as they comply with the old.
Eric, you are in
Yes.
control of the cards, right?
Not according to the old policy.
Are you in control of the cards today?
They're in my pocket, so yes.
There you go, Eric. So we're all good, right? You keep the cards in your pocket until we get a resolution and it'll make the treasurer happy. Is that good?
Okay, fair enough.
All right, thank you. All right, 9GB, schedule a joint meeting of Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, Board of Education to discuss budget priorities for the upcoming year. So this is part of the charter revision. We'll sit there and get this done. December 3rd will probably be let's all come up with dates for that because Caitlin is looking to spearhead that meeting. And it's going to be a joint combination. It's going to be this joint budget meeting, but it's also going to be the tri-board meeting that we had in last year or the year before, and we haven't had since. So this was something that we should do just to get everybody together and talk over the issues that we continue to have as to our current relationships, as to how they deal with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education and the Board of Finance. So
Jeff, do we tentatively want to schedule that for December 3rd? You want to just make a motion now?
Well, I would think you would probably make a motion to recommend to the Board of Finance, because technically they're the ones that should be seeking input from the other two boards regarding the budget.
Okay, but if we're comfortable with the third, if everybody here is comfortable with the third, should we just put that forward to the Board of Finance saying that date's okay with us? Because their meeting is coming up, correct?
That's fine. Let's make the
Their
motion.
meeting's on the 20th.
So let's get that, we can get that to them, and then that way they can talk to the Board of Ed and put the meeting together.
December 3rd is fine for me.
Scott, Ann?
Fine for me.
Fine for me.
Okay. So Jeff, you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we suggest December 3rd as the meeting date for the tri-board meeting?
Yeah, that's good.
To the Board of Finance.
I'll second that. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 4-0. GC update on bridge construction. You already gave us that.
Yep, we can ignore that.
GD, agreement on fire marshal mutual aid. That was in your package.
Yep,
Anybody-
so this is basically, this has been a discussion that's been going on between Andover, Bolton, and Columbia regarding basically just mutual aid and mutual support for the fire marshal in case something really big happens where we need multiple fire marshals to do an investigation. Not something that's likely to be invoked very often. Doesn't cost us any money. It just says we're all authorized to act as fire marshals in those 3 towns if something happens. So I would suggest that we authorize me to sign that and move on. I think Columbia has already signed it. I don't know that Bolton has already.
All right, I make a motion that we authorize Eric to sign the agreement for fire marshal mutual aid.
Second that.
Second,
And got that one.
and
Yeah. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
4-0, Eric.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. GE. GE, Community Center update. Discussion on cellular shades for the community center. We're just gonna go through all these. Sound deadening materials for the community center, sound deadening materials for the town hall community room, and we'll go from there. So those are the shades for the community center. I saw your quote and what you're quoting for the community center. And do you have where are we pulling this money from? Let's talk about that. Where would you would recommend pulling money? What fund?
So I would take that right from the multi-use building fund, which we intended the money we have aligned for doing the community center anyway.
Okay. And you did not like the use of that fund?
It just seems like it's a lot of different things coming from that fund. I didn't know. Is that what the fund's designed for?
Yes.
Well, we had identified we were going to spend at least 150,000 from that fund to finish off the building. So I think taking it from that fund is appropriate.
Okay.
So Eric, you're talking cellular shades, you're talking about the insulating type?
Yeah, they're a little insulating. I don't think they're that insulating, but yes.
Okay, because they have like a double and a triple insulated cellular shade that you can buy that really boost the R value of the windows. So I didn't know if that's what you had envisioned.
No, just the 2-layer, the standard cellular shade. The problem is when we start asking for fire rated assemblies, it really knocks down our choices on a lot of these things. I did ask because I don't pick colors and I don't pick designs for stuff like that. So I asked Kathy DeRoja and then Diane Choquette once we had the info from 2 of the blinds companies to come in and pick designs and colors for the community center, both for that as well as for the sound deadening materials. And that's essentially what they chose. We had a series of different options.
So the shades are sound deadening and shades?
They're going to be a little bit sound deadening. They're not going to be, we're not relying on the shades to be the major sound deadening elements, because as soon as you put the shades up, they're essentially useless for sound deadening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're relying on
room darkening.
They're designed to be room darkening and aesthetic.
You can get either or. You can just either get a standard cellular shade, or you can get a room darkening shade. Did you look at measuring and trying to go to an online like Steve's Blinds or another company like that? Because I found in the past that the prices are almost half of what you deal with a local contractor.
And then how do you install all this stuff?
Well, Public Works has been doing some of it, haven't they? Or even our handyman cleaner has been doing some of this work too. correct? I'm just asking the question, that's all. Did we lose Jeff? Ann, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, because it looks like we lost Jeff. We've lost, you
Huh.
are now the host.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what happened. We lost a bunch
Yeah.
of people.
I see that. I don't see Eric either.
Eric.
Yeah, we lost
also.
Eric. Eric froze. I asked him a question about the blinds, about going online for him, and he froze and we
Mhm.
lost him. So
I know
Someone's
my
gonna have
lights
to
blinked a
probably admit
tiny
that.
bit.
He got kicked off the internet.
so you may be able to you may have to let them back in, because since you're the host now.
Well, let's see here how I
Do you
do
have do you have a
that.
waiting room that you can go and let them back in?
Is that under participants? No.
I could try to call Eric real quick and see what we need to do, because he was
I
probably the
don't
host.
see. I don't see where I'm host. Nothing changed on my
Well, it
screen.
said, I just got a thing that said you were host.
Oh.
Let me check and see if I can get a hold of Eric.
Follow host. Video forum. Hmm. Ooh, okay. Um,
Hey, Ann, it's Stephen King. Can you hear me?
yes.
If you click on participants at the bottom of your screen, the participants
Yeah.
window should show up and you should see anybody in a waiting room.
Okay. Yes, I see that. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There was 2 people there.
Sorry, I seem to have lost the internet at the house. I'm trying to rework some things.
Yeah, Eric, just talked to Eric. Eric's back in as the host, I believe, and you guys had a power outage real quick?
Yeah,
we
it
just
appears.
had a quick power outage at the town hall.
Yeah, we lost a bunch of people.
Mhm.
Okay, hold on for 1 second. I'm gonna try to get back in the other way.
Recording in progress.
Sorry.
Okay. That's better.
You got to unmute, Jeff. Unmute. You're muted.
Audio.
There you go. You're back.
Video. Okay, there I am. Okay, 1 second.
It's interesting. Whatever whatever the connection was, it except because the town's on fiber. So it screwed up that connection as well as whatever internet was on the lake, which is probably what, Comcast?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Eric, we were on the shades and the sound deadening materials. So we have various quotes. Has Diane Choquette and Kathy DeRocher made are they recommending anything to us?
Yeah, the options we had, they preferred the cellular shades. Essentially just a white color. That's pretty much it. And then the question is, I asked them also to quote it both ways, to quote it either with a, essentially automatic controllers or just opening them up manually. It's a couple $1,000 extra if you want to go to an automated controller.
And do they have a preference on one of these companies? I mean, because there are two different types of
Right. The only ones that had if we're going with the cellular shade, Alpha Arrow was the only company that we brought in that had the fire rated cellular shades. The other companies had different options about Roman shades and other things. And we talked about drapes versus shades versus, and they both decided that drapes would not be appropriate in that facility. And they wanted something compact that was inside the actual window, and that when it was all the way rolled up, took up the minimum amount of the top of the window, which is why they thought cellular shades was the best solution for that.
Okay, so you're talking a difference of $7,300 to $5,000.
Correct.
Motorized.
I mean, I think the motorized is cool, but do I think it's $2,300 cool?
Yes.
They don't make cordless, just the cordless ones without the cords, because that's the ones I have in my home. They're cordless, and you just pull them up and down, and they're
right. That's what we're getting. That's
Those are
the lesser of the two quotes are ones they have a little pull tab on the bottom. You push them up, you pull them down. That's what I
yeah.
have on my
Those
house.
should be adequate. Those would be adequate.
How high are those windows?
They're not so high that you can't pull them down.
Okay. All right, then that's fine. So do we want to make a motion to go with the estimate 4967 from Alpha Arrow?
For the
Anybody have?
cordless blinds.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming that's the one, Eric, correct?
Correct.
And how many windows is that?
Has two things in here. Which one is which? Oh, I see. One's remote control. Okay.
The two from Alpha Arrow, those two quotes really only differ as to whether you have motorized or non-motorized.
Okay.
It's about a $2,200 adder to motorize them all with a single controller.
Okay. So the 5,090 is the one that was not motorized.
Correct.
All right.
Cellular shades from Alpha Arrow.
So the motorized ones, they were either going to be all open or all closed.
No, they can be opened or closed individually, but a single controller can control the exact number of windows we have in the commuter room. So you can have them go all up and down together, or you can have individual ones go up and down, depending on what you want to do.
You just get a remote and program it. But
my fear would be we'd lose the remote or something would happen to the remote, and then we can't put
how
those
many
blinds
how
up.
many how many remotes are we going to have in
Or if we're
blinds?
going to use it when the power goes out, or if the power goes out, we need to open and close the blinds. We can't do it unless we have a generator going, I guess.
Yeah,
Well, no, they're not hardwired.
They're battery.
They're just
They're
battery
battery operated ones. So
yeah, which opens another can of worms. Like somebody's got to go up there and change the batteries periodically, and so I think the manual ones will be fine.
They're like, I mean, just from that standpoint, they probably have like 6D batteries in those motors, Jeff, so they last a long time. But we'd lose the remote, so
Again, the batteries are going to die. The batteries corrode, and it's just not a good.
All right,
long-term solution.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with Alpha Era quote 4967 for $5,090 for shades for the senior center, community center building to be taken out of the multi-use building fund.
Seconded.
Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Eric, the sound deadening.
Okay, so the goal is basically to provide enough sound deadening material on the walls to get you below a certain reverberation threshold, because we all know the main community center room is pretty bad. So, and the other problem we have is that we do have a reflective surface in the floor because it's not a carpeted floor. So we will have to have some panels on the ceiling. So the acoustic engineer gave me essentially multiple ways to do that. This is the most cost-effective way that I could find other than making the panels ourselves, which is use a mix of 1-inch thick and 2-inch thick panels. The 2-inch thick panel does a little bit better dealing with bass or bass rather than 1-inch panel. They're pretty close in performance on higher frequencies. The 2-inch works better on absorbing lower frequency. So the way this is set up is a certain portion is on the ceiling and the rest are on the walls. And what I worked is just to make a kind of symmetrical design. So on the walls, we're putting all, vertical tall panels, and they will match pretty closely what the paint is on the wall now. So the goal is to not to contrast as much as possible, to make them blend into the existing wall surfaces. So I had a conversation with William Bell. William said he's put these up before for the town of Hebron. He's happy to take that on as a project for the community center. It's fairly expensive to ship this stuff because it's coming up from Virginia. So my suggestion is if we can do it, we order the materials for both the community center and the community room at the same time.
That's an ungodly amount of shipping. I mean, how many pallets are we talking? You can't be talking that many pallets.
Well, remember they're fairly big because a lot of these panels we're purchasing are 10 feet long. So it's coming up from Virginia via freight.
Okay. Can you get the tax off of there at least?
Yeah.
And is this going to do it? Have you run this by Kathy and Diane regarding the aesthetics of that room?
Yes. We've had extensive conversations about both rooms. And they picked the fabric. I gave them about 100 choices in fabric color, and they picked both the wall and ceiling fabric for that room, as well as the community room in the town hall.
Good.
I'm looking at the pictures in your packet, and some are like an off-white, and then there's one that's like a blue-gray. Where's that one going?
So the blue-gray is going on the community room in the town hall on the blue wall.
Okay.
Behind the projector screen mounted up high over the screen.
Okay, great.
Now in the community, so the community center, the community room in the town hall, because of the layout of that room, that has things going for it and things going against it. What it has going for it is at least it's a carpeted floor. So the acoustic engineer thinks we can get away with, it's less than ideal, but we can get away with putting no panels on the ceiling in that room and have all wall mounted panels on that room. This doesn't get us to the kind of ideal number acoustically. But, without making the walls a real jigsaw puzzle with lots of other little pieces fit in wherever they could fit, to get a clean layout, that's basically how many panels we can fit on the wall, which equates to about 70% of the ideal amount of sound absorption material. If we have to, we can fit additional panels on the ceiling, at a later date. But what I would say is that's an expensive enough project. Let's try to do it with 70% of the material, and see if it's good enough. And if it really is still needs additional, then we'll go down that route. But I don't want to put anything on the ceiling there, the wood ceilings, if I don't have to.
So the quote that you have here, there's one for $5,400 and then there's another one for $8,700. Which is which and what are they for?
So the community room is the $5,000 quote. But that is assuming that we buy them both at the same time and all the shipping. It didn't make sense to, if we're gonna pay for shipping, we ought to ship everything at once. So all the shipping is added to the other quote for both setups.
You're sprayed on both the quotes.
They're sprayed on both, yeah.
It's the exact same freight. So let's put freight aside. You're saying it would be $6,899 to do the community senior center, and
Town hall community room.
the community room would be $3,800.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
It's not the way it's listed here.
Right. I did not look at that carefully.
Anne is correct. So can we
Yeah, I think all that, the freight was not supposed to be on the one for the community center. I think that freight number covered both.
that makes it it's extremely odd to me. I would think that there's more. I mean, I realize the community room is terrible acoustically, but if you're only doing all walls, I would assume that would be the lower of the costs.
No, because cement block is inherently worse than drywall to begin with as a reflective surface. And they're also much taller walls and a much taller ceiling than in the community center. So there's a lot more surface area in that room than there is in the community center.
Okay, so the community center is the first quote for $3,800, and the community room, which is the second quote, is $6,900.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. And you're telling us we'll get to 70% of the appropriate level in the community room, and where in the senior center?
Pretty much in the senior center, pretty much to what their recommended reverb level for that room is.
Okay. All right. Do we want to vote on this without the final numbers? Taking out the taxes, getting the freight right. What would we like to do? Would we like to just give Eric a ballpark to sit there and move this forward, or not do it at all? What's the choice?
Can we just make a motion for a not to exceed?
Sure.
Yeah.
So
And if it exceeds that amount, he's gonna have to come back and we're gonna have to discuss it, but
7, 11. How about 12,500 for both buildings? Anybody?
Eric, okay with
Yeah.
that?
Eric, that's excluding taxes. I'm adding
1,200.
1,500 for freight, which I just still think that's exorbitant, but
It's a pretty obscene number.
I mean,
Yeah.
listen,
You
I'd
could
like to.
almost rent a truck and go down there yourself for that.
Yeah,
Um,
doesn't
if
weigh
you
anything.
like, I'm happy to rent a U-Haul for you and you can drive down and pick it up.
but I would like, I mean, anyway.
I can't drive it.
Doesn't make any sense. So I'll make a motion that, I'm just trying to make sure I'm correct. So it's 7 for one. It's 4 for the other. So that's 11 plus $1,500 to cover freight, because the assumption is that there's one freight charge for $1,298. They just put it on.
I'm pretty sure that's correct, because when we talked about it, I told them to put all the freight on the community center, or not the community center, the community room side, because that was going to be the bigger bill anyway.
So I make a motion that we authorize Eric to work with Acoustical Solutions to do the sound deadening treatments for the community room and the senior / community center great room, not to exceed $12,500.
Seconded.
I'll second that.
Further discussion on that item? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. E4 software package, My Senior Center.
Yeah, we discussed this last week, but we didn't really make, or last month, but we didn't actually make a motion. So again, we looked at multiple software packages for that. I think My Senior Center is the most appropriate for the things we're doing. It's basically $4,800 up front to put the whole thing in, and after that, the annual fee is about $1,700 a year to use it, for the software package for running the facility.
And that handles the majority of what that building is going to be required to do. How about transportation, all that good stuff, calendars?
That handles calendars and transportation perfectly. Where it would be a little imperfect is trying to fit it in to handle all the recreation. If we started doing field scheduling and things like that on that, that's a weakness. It can be done, but it's not as easy through this package.
And you and Tess are both in agreement on this software?
Yes, very definitely. And frankly, the other option is about 3 times the cost.
Okay.
So what will this program do for us?
So for one thing, it allows you to track everything. It allows people to pay for events directly, either right on the spot or ahead of time. It allows people to sign up electronically for programming. So you can run the luncheon programs, you can run senior transportation, you can run events and programming. Basically, everything goes through one module, basically.
And where would you take this money from?
I would take that from the multi-use building fund also. Because we don't have anything set aside, in the community center budget to cover any of this.
I would just like to see it budgeted in the next year's, I mean, I know we'd have to wait, but I'd almost like to see this budgeted in next year's instead of expending. It seems like we're bleeding down the community center fund pretty rapidly. And this is not a one-time expense like blinds and soundproofing. This is a reoccurring expense.
The reoccurring expense of $1,700 doesn't bother me. It's the $4,800.
Yes.
So, but the $1,700 beginning in year 2. So the first year is $4,800. Year 2 is $1,700.
Yeah,
Is that
so
accurate?
think of it as $3,100 to set this thing up and implement it, and then $1,700 a year to run it.
Where I understand where you're at, Jeff, and I would like to have it been in our budget. We're just getting organized. I think it's probably important to sit there and try to give them the tools or test the tools to run that place effectively. So while I would like it to go through the
Well, one
budget.
thing I'd like, have we run this by any of the commissions, like the senior commission and the rec commission? I would just want to know if the seniors are comfortable using this. I mean, have we discussed this at a senior luncheon or? I mean, most of our seniors.
Well, a number of our seniors already have the tags and logons from when they go to other community centers, because the majority of community centers, at least in the area, run this. Coventry does, Columbia does, Bolton does. So this is kind of what most towns are doing in this area.
Okay, I just wanted to ask that question. That was all.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. No doubt. And yeah.
I would assume though that, I mean, because I sit there and look at it a little bit differently. Isn't this where Tess is going to be utilizing it when a senior comes in and needs to do something or calls and says they have to set up an appointment? She would still do that if they didn't have the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way this works is anybody can do it from home if they want to register from something, but you can also walk right in the front door and it's basically a touch screen and you just say, who am I? You know, either you type your name in the thing or you have a little card and you key card into it. And then you say, I'm here for this, and you're registered. And it keeps track of everything. So when you're going for funding and you're trying to figure out how many rides you gave on senior transportation, all of that information is in there. So that's part of the objective for it.
So like you said, there was an issue with, recreational type. If we want to start signing people up for pickleball and drop-in basketball and youth basketball and some of those other activities, you said it's problematic for that type of use?
So if you're talking about registering somebody for pickleball or drop-in activities, that it can accommodate that. Where you start having problems is if you want to lay out a recreation schedule or for the field and you want to assign different times to like lots of different groups, it's not optimized for that. Can it do it? Yes. Is it difficult? Yes. So that's the one thing that I think is kind of the weakness of this software versus the Civic Rec platform, which we also looked at.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to sign up for guitar lessons, yoga, that type of things, if it's going to be offered, that's going to be able to be signed up for using this app.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is for. This is for normal operations in a community center or a senior center for programming. It's very easy for you as the administrator essentially to set it up and to put the event in. Everything shows up as a calendar, and anybody can sign up and then it automatically tracks who is there. If you have yoga and, you have a capacity of 15 people, it knows, when the 15th person is signed up for it, it can't sign up anymore. So that kind of thing, it's kind of useful for.
And so how does the e-commerce wing of this work? Is it just, it's set up for secure credit card transactions?
It can be, yes.
Is there an additional charge for that, or is that included for what we're spending the money on?
I think that's in with the fee, but I'm not positive on that, to be
Yeah, because
honest.
I would want to make sure that we can do e-commerce and people can sign up electronically with their credit cards and it's,
You're probably gonna have to pay transactional fees.
yeah, if it's like a
Yeah.
percent, if it's gonna be 1 or 2%, I don't have a problem with that, but I just want to make sure we have that function if we're gonna purchase the software.
Okay.
Because for me, that's a big component of it.
So Eric, can you find that out for us? And can you also do it just so we're as transparent as possible? Did you get a quote on the other software? Which you said was multiple times the cost, just so we're laying it out there.
Yeah, I could probably get you that quote. Do you want to just have my senior center give you all a presentation at your meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to ask those questions and that way I can line it, that way I can take a look at their software and then I can formulate a bunch of questions.
I mean, I can also suggest that what I did with Tess was we went to Columbia Senior Center and just saw how this worked in action. Because my concern with these things is always that, they can be really cool, but, you don't need somebody with a PhD trying to figure out how to work the thing. And what I got out of it was a very easy software for somebody that was running a center to administer, and everybody I watched that walked in was pretty easily able to key code themselves in and assign them to whatever thing they were doing. So from my perspective, it seems functional. If you want a presentation on it, I will try to line that up for your next meeting.
I mean, is the rest of the board comfortable with that? I would just like to know a little bit more about it before I voted on
Yeah,
it.
that'd be great.
That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Okay. E5, purchase of kitchen equipment.
All right. So as most of you know, we do have a grant that will pay for about $10,000 worth of the cost of the equipment for the kitchen for the community center. Part of what we're trying to do is get the things so we can actually have a functional food service license for the facility. And that implies a series of things needed to be added to the building. So I am tomorrow meeting with a kitchen designer because I want to make sure that what I think will fit in there will actually fit in there and that we can get a design and layout. But presuming we can, I would like to go ahead and purchase at least what we have the grant money available and consideration of purchasing other things. We make that fairly functional, and we can keep the food service license for that as opposed to running off a temp license, which has other restrictions. What are your questions?
What are you going to purchase?
So I sent you a list today. Everything I was looking at purchasing as well as the cut sheets on it. But basically a fridge and a freezer, the required sinks that you have to have, which is essentially a 3-bay wash sink, a hand sink, and switching out the prep sink to a stainless steel prep sink, a commercial microwave, a coffee brewer, and a work table, and then consider actually putting in a dishwasher there at the same time. And then with the layout to include exactly how the stove goes in as well as the hood. One of the things we've struggled with a little bit was how to get for years, the seniors have been saying they want to be able to do pancakes and pancake breakfast. So we found a gas stove that so it's a 6-burner commercial stove, but it will take a, basically a griddle attachment that sits over 4 of the burners that gives you a, a large griddle area so you can make pancakes or whatever else you want to fry on that. The other thing is, looking at most of the senior centers, most senior centers seem to have a standalone water and ice dispenser. They're really expensive. We originally planned on an under counter ice maker. And I think what I would like to do is go back to, so we've gone back and forth between buying the standalone ice and water dispenser or just an under counter ice maker, and a separate water spigot for filling up, pitchers and stuff like that. I had a conversation with My Tech Plumbing about where we could install it, and he's pretty confident we can put a tall pitcher filler right next to our prep sink, and that saves us about $2,000 because the under counter ice makers are a lot less expensive than the combo ones. So not a perfect solution, but probably a pretty good solution. And so we went around looking at various different brands that we could get our hands on that we could actually look at. My suggestion is we use the local distributor in East Hartford. The stuff they sell seems to have fairly good reviews. They have a lot of options in terms of what we can, and, we have the ability to go look at it. So that's my preference. But there are cheaper units, certainly for the fridge and freezer. We can use Webstaurant or Restaurant Depot for something that looks roughly the same. They're not necessarily going to be stainless steel interior, but they are decidedly cheaper. We've looked at a couple of them. Their reviews are, somewhat questionable. And the one thing I know about the Paradise Equipment is they have their own service staff that are licensed to service what they sell. So that, to me, the ability to know that you can get a compressor, fixed if something happens, is probably worth the extra money. But, I'm certainly willing to consider other options if you want me to. And I sent you the cut sheets on all the stuff we're looking at for them.
I was just wondering if, depending on what time tomorrow, if I could come and see what the designer is talking about and planning. I've worked in commercial kitchens, and I'd be really curious to see how it's all going to fit in there and what they're choosing.
Me too. Sure. I'll tell you when. Meeting scheduled for 10:30 tomorrow morning.
I'd like some more time to
probably
digest
do
this
that.
since the time we got this information. I would like to take a look at it a little bit more in depth.
I'm assuming you're gonna break down the total number to actually what you're going to incur. Because there's pieces that are on here that you said you were gonna remove and adjust. So like the water ice maker.
So the first question I have is, so the stuff for the ARPA grant, we really need to spend that by December 31st. So we can't wait a long time to make that decision. Beyond that 10,000, we can order now or order later. So we have more options when it comes to that. And I'm certainly not advocating for putting in the oven or the hood now. I think that's going to be a next year thing. That would be my guess. I gave you a series of options. I think there's around $500 or $600 in small stuff that we technically have to purchase. We worked with Thad, and Thad gave us a list of all the things we technically had to have. Food service wise for the kitchen. Most of those we'll just buy on Amazon because they're cheaper for the little stuff.
So then can you send us an email that tells us which pieces of this that you'd like to buy with the grant money that's available so we can approve it, via email?
Okay, so you want just the stuff that we're gonna buy off the grant?
Isn't that the
Yeah.
point? Because
That
you
would be
have
good.
money, you have to spend it.
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm assuming that I would look at this and I go, okay, are you going to try to put the sinks in so that you can actually wash it? Are you going to put one of the refrigerator and the freezer in? But a lot of that information will be done tomorrow when you actually have the designer out to lay it out and you sit there with Ann and get some perspective on it all. And then come back to us and say, I have $5,800 and this is what I want to spend it on.
Okay. Fair enough.
Anybody have any problem with that?
Sounds good.
Okay. The leading edge change order.
Yep.
So, do you have any problems with that?
Yeah, personally, I think it's BS. And I've told them multiple times, I don't think it's appropriate, but they're insisting we owe it. I think we subtracted far more from that job, with Public Works labor than, they had to make up in any overages. So I do not think it's appropriate. But I don't think it's going away either. So
Did you put together a number for all the work that DPW did? So you can show them?
no, I did not.
Okay.
But the real question and where I think he's wrong is that, he's basically saying that a lot of this occurred because of errors by the civil engineers, and a little bit in the front was appropriate, and I would agree with them. But from my perspective, the town public works had to completely regrade their work in the back because they didn't meet the engineer's specs. And their argument is that the engineer's specs were right or were wrong. But when I look at the back and I look at the way it's graded now, Public Works was able to match what BSC engineering proposed, but Leading Edge was not. So from my perspective, they're wrong on that. And we ended up spending an awful lot of time and effort correcting their work.
Okay,
Do I have an exact number for it? No, I don't.
And if you could, then you could go back and negotiate with Leading Edge and then come to us with a final resolution so we could either approve it or reject it, because you've got to go and do that so that you get with Leading Edge and say, hey, listen, these are all the things the Department of Public Works did that you're not taking into account. And here's how it offsets this number.
Right.
And is this the last change order?
Oh, no, I mean, they're threatening, with, oh, well, if you don't approve this, there's all these other things.
Eric, it does us zero
So-
good to do this on
Right.
this like this. So,
Yeah.
no good. So what I'm asking is this the expected last change order?
As far as I know,
Okay.
yes.
So then go back to Leading Edge with the information that you've addressed, that Department of Public Works effort and labor is not being taken into account, and then sit there and negotiate that with them, and then bring the change order to us to approve at the next meeting if there is a change order. So, and understanding it's a negotiation and it may work and it may not work. So, but at least with the ammunition of understanding this is what Public Works put into this that we didn't get reimbursed for and they didn't have to do, that would be great. And they can't use the issue that it's the civil engineer's fault.
No.
I mean, I don't like dealing with people who do that, but you just got to deal. You gotta negotiate that outside of this meeting. We're not going to get anything done here tonight related to
Right.
it.
The
Anybody
wall
got-
that they built in the back with the grading, the associated grading was worth more than what they're asking. Just the
Right, but
wall.
that wall was not on the plans, so. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
we
that's the
can't-
only way, to establish good drainage on that particular area.
Okay, Scott, Jeff.
Not sure I totally agree with that.
That's
Steve.
okay. Listen, just the three of you, because that's all area of expertise for each of you. Just sit there and, give Eric the ammunition to go back and negotiate with them so that we don't have to pay this money if at all possible. All right. Anybody have any other issues not related to that? Okay. So this is GF, a Vale soccer contract for field usage. It's under new business. I don't see the contract there. I'm expecting that we're not going to get a contract for them. They've moved
Correct.
to Coventry.
They've indicated that they've moved on and they think we're in breach of their contract and they're moving on.
Okay, we're in breach of their contract because they can't put lights up on the field.
Correct, but there's nothing in the contract that says that, so they're
We're
full
not-
of crap. But the reality is we're not gonna be able to make them pay for it anyway. So it's effectively a dead contract at this point.
Okay, we'll sit there and touch base with the town attorney on that later. Copier contract renewal.
So I put in your packet, I looked at essentially three alternatives. The first is, so the copiers that we have under contract are from a company called The Office Works. So if we just take those copiers out, put essentially the identical copier in using the state bid price in the same firm, it nets out to about $45 a month less than what we're paying now with the same service costs. So that's one option. I also got a proposal from Rico because they're another company that covers a lot of towns in this area. Across the board, they were more expensive than the other guys, Office Works. The other option I explored is what happens if we purchase our existing machines. He wouldn't give me an exact buyout, but he said the buyout for those existing machines, because they would have to negotiate that with the lender, is going to be somewhere between $4,000 and $4,500 for both the existing units. They will guarantee a service contract for at least 2 more years. They said likely you'll get 3 or 4 years before they're still parts supply. They're not a machine that's made anymore, but since they were only sold 5 years ago, they're legally required to have parts for at least 7 years. And he said usually it's 8 or so years before you start having parts availability. So if we bought them up front, they do charge a higher service fee for units that are, beyond a certain date. So our per copy charge will go up a little bit. It's not a significant amount. The bottom line is we break even 26 or 27 months from now. And then depending on how how long the units last. It's cash positive for the town to do that. But you have an older machine that may or may not be less reliable. So those are really the three options. I would throw out the proposal for Rico. I don't see any advantage to that. It doesn't give you anything you don't already have, and we're certainly getting good service from Office Works. So the question is simply, do you extend, do you sign a contract for new machines off the state bid price? Or do you buy the machines outright? You know, and go from there. Thoughts?
Can you give us a one-page summary of the charges by quote so that we can see it, you know, like the total monthly cost by machine for each one of them, and then the actual cost per page? Like I'm thinking that the document for Office Works is on page 49.
Correct.
Okay.
So there's two things. There's a maintenance agreement. Their click charge for black only is 0.052 cents. And for color is 0.05. And that's what the service contract is built into the click charge, essentially.
Okay, but where's the monthly cost?
I thought that proposal was in there.
No, that's what I'm having trouble with. So I can sit there and see that the black cost for the Rico is 0.0078, so two tenths of a penny or 1/100th of a penny higher, and it's 0.0615 cents per color, so a whole penny higher per color. So I get that part of the equation. I don't get the monthly lease numbers. I mean, just knowing
I'd have to go back. I thought that was actually in the packet, so I apologize for it not being. I think it nets out to about $175 a month for both copiers. And now it's like it's 222, something like that. It's about $45 a month less than our existing copiers.
okay, but on the Rico one, you have a desktop. I'm assuming you're not going to use that in the senior center. I mean, so that's what I'm driving at. Like when you do a something like this for us, you can have all the documentation behind it so we can look at it, but it's really simple to put one-page piece of paper on this to say, here's the monthly expenses, here's the annual expenses, this is what we pay currently, and then here's potentially the savings or the price increase so we can understand what we're dealing with. To me, I just don't I mean, I understand these are leases, but it should always be, we should always try to get a lease to own contract, because if you can get a lease to own contract, you know, they don't charge you that $4,800, which is kind of ridiculous, which is a joke. And then you can sit there and deal with some cost savings by just paying a higher per charge for each copy and each color copy. But when do you
Okay.
when do you
What
need
do
this
you want to see
information?
in
When do you need this information? When do you need this approved by?
I mean, our contract's been expired for a couple months anyway, so if it's expired for a couple more, leasing company's getting a little antsy, but I'm sure they'll hold off another month or two.
So they're taking your lease payment though.
Of course.
Of course. Okay. Let's find out if you can, just give us the one column that says current, one column that says what Rico is going to charge us for similar equipment, one column for what Office Works is recommending to charge us for similar equipment, and we'll get it approved next cycle.
Fair enough.
Shouldn't be that hard to deal with this. The only question I have is lease to own or lease to deal with a buyout? That would be the only thing I would ask you to look at. Okay, anybody have any issues with that? Okay,
Issues, I like the leasing idea and that you always can get the maintenance with it, I think. Whereas when you own it, sometimes the maintenance is a problem, unless you've got a company that's really good, I don't know.
well, this company was gonna sit there and allow us to buy it out and give us maintenance for a minimum of 2 years. But then you have to
Mhm.
sit there and do the analysis, is it worth the 2 years?
Is it worth it? Yeah. I don't know,
Okay.
that's a
So-
comparison.
We can do the math, if the information is just provided on one piece of paper and you're not bouncing back and forth, you can do it. But Eric, the Avenue contract,
That's Carol, that's not me.
GH. Okay. So what are we, Carol, if you're on, are you on here? What are we attempting to do? What do we need to do for you?
Hi, yeah, okay, and you're asking me questions, I'm sorry about the venue contract.
Yeah, the Avenue contract.
Yes, that's the land records. So they have our land records, dog licensing, trade names, everything is done through that system. They did have a $65 per month increase, still providing all of the same services. Eric asked me to get a couple of quotes. I did contact Scott. And another, I haven't heard back anything yet, with the second quote, but they are part of the state contract.
So this is just a relicensing or a resubscription fee for what we're currently utilizing.
Correct. It would be renewing for another 5 years with the same company.
All right. Okay. And when does this expire?
It expired a couple of months ago.
Okay.
So we're just month to month right now at the 650.
Okay, the same kind of information would be beneficial for this, which is what's our current costs and what's our, so you're telling us it's going up, how much?
$85. Currently it's $650 a month for all of the same services. The contract is 65, $750.
Okay, so currently in the town clerk budget, you have this set at $650 a month and it's going up to $715 per month. Is the dog program included?
Yeah.
And what is the maintenance 2020 license for assessor?
So, basically I have two computers here, the admin computer and the public access. And then we have one other computer that we can, put the in the town office building, access the land records.
And we have that in the assessor's office?
So currently it is on the assistant's computer on her desktop.
Okay. All right, just as a question, have we planned for this in the current budget period to go up?
We did not, and I did ask them why they waited until after the start of our current fiscal year to give me the proposal. So they have new people, and that's why I wasn't paying attention to the expiration date.
Okay, so if we end up with potentially 7 months times $65. I'm assuming you have that flexibility somewhere in your budget.
I do.
Okay. All right, Eric, are there any issues operationally that you see? I mean, it's something that's in the town clerk's office right now, so $455 of additional subscription costs shouldn't impact the budget. Any issues? No? Okay.
No, I mean, the question is that the best vendor? There's certainly plenty of other vendors, or at least a couple of other vendors that provide the same service. But I don't have a dog in the hunt. If you want to approve this right now, go for it and we'll move on.
Okay, so it's the existing vendor.
Correct?
Okay. And Carol, you were saying that you looked at other vendors, but they didn't get back to you?
Yes, I did request a quote from COP. I haven't received anything back yet. And I have checked with other clerks who use COP and IQS, another one. And they're all right in that same ballpark for monthly.
And who was the other one? COP and who?
IQS.
Is that the service that deals with the assessor's office and the tax bills?
I did not ask about that. I just asked other towns. Now, the towns that I asked, they do not have an additional computer on their system. They just have the computers that are located in their office, admin and public access.
Well, the question is, does the assessor's office use it?
Again, it is on the assistant town clerk's computer.
Oh,
And
the
yes,
assistant.
she does use it because if we have title searchers here, sometimes we have a couple in the office at the same time, and we do have a second desktop.
Okay, so Carol, you would like to sit there and see Avenue's contract moved forward.
I would be willing to do that. We've had good luck with them. I haven't had any complaints from attorneys or title searchers. They all seem to like the system.
Anybody else have any questions for the town clerk? Okay. Anybody have any problem with the system and the additional cost, $455? Okay, anyone want to make a motion on that item?
Go ahead, Jeff.
What was that one? No? All right, I'll make a motion that we authorize well, let me go backwards. Carol, do we need a 5-year contract on this?
That is what they sent out. I can ask if they will shorten the contract, but it's every 5 years. The last one was a 5-year too.
The last one was 5 years as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion that we authorize the town clerk or the town administrator to sign the Avenue contract for the land record management system.
Second that.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. There was a vendor permit in our package from Trinity Solar. Anyone have an issue with that? Eric, are you looking for a motion for us to authorize you to sign that?
Well, if you want to issue a vendor permit, then you should do that. That's a Board of Selectmen responsibility, not a town administrator responsibility. So if you want to give that person a vendor permit, make a motion to that effect. If you don't.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to sign the town of Andover vendor license for Trinity Solar LLC.
Okay.
Somebody,
Second.
Scott seconded that. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 2025 meeting dates. They are on page 78. The The only one that I had a problem with or I would like to adjust is I'd like to make the October meeting October 6th. It's a Monday before the holiday. It's the first Monday in the month. Anybody have a problem with any of those dates?
So you want October to be October, what was that one
6th.
again?
Or 6, okay.
October 6th. So Columbus Day is on the 13th, which is the second
Mhm.
Monday. So as opposed to having our meeting on October 14th or whatever date, we just do it the week before.
Okay.
Anybody have any issues with any of the dates? I mean, July 4th is pushed out far enough to avoid the holiday.
Mm-hmm.
September is a week after Labor Day. So it was actually a fairly good cycle. And then November 10th is Monday, and that avoids the Veterans Day holiday, which is Tuesday the 11th. Okay. So I'll make a motion that we approve the 2025 proposed meeting dates with the October meeting being scheduled for October 6th.
Second, Jeff.
Okay, Scott, any further discussion on the meeting dates? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Well, since we're talking, I'll talk about meeting dates later. Meeting timing. Item 11, approval of the minute meetings for October 7th, 2024 regular meeting and the 11B, the 10/21/2024 special meeting minutes.
Motion to
Anybody?
approve.
Motion to approve. I'll second. Further discussion on the minute meetings? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Jeff, did you vote?
I'm gonna abstain because I was out of one meeting.
Okay. Ann, did you vote?
I just don't think some of it's very clear. She makes it very cryptic, and there's a few spots that I would have changed or said more probably, but I know the part about the tri-board policy on the AES capital projects. I spoke about that, and this doesn't say who would, quote, keep on the agenda and speak with the BOE chair and town attorney. I guess maybe that was you, Jeff, but it didn't say. And then there was no mentions about my questions about the changes to it. I thought that maybe should have been in there.
Okay. So do you not want to vote in favor of it?
Well, could we just change it? Change the minutes? Add some of that in there?
Sure, you can make some recommendations to it. I'll sit there and rescind my motion. So,
Well, simply make the changes and then we approve it as changed. That's what we do in the planning and zoning, I know.
I understand that, but you'd have to sit there and outline the changes. So I don't mind with you
Okay.
outlining the changes, just if we can just get that done. And, I don't even care if we approve those minutes and you want to hold this off to the next meeting so that you can
Oh.
identify the changes from the video and then write down what you want. We can get that to the minute taker and get them done. So I'm okay with that. So let's push this off till our next meeting. So Eric, we're going to approve those minutes after Ann codifies her changes and we get them into the record.
Fair
Okay.
enough.
All right. To item 12, treasurer's report. Anybody have any questions related to the documents that were provided us?
Oh. I had one. Under section 9900 transfers. It says transfers. I didn't know where the money was transferred to.
What page are you on? Start with that.
Oh, let's see. Find that again.
She has to be on page 98.
It's page 98, yeah.
Okay, so what line?
Like 9900 transfers. There's all those things, contingency, multi-use building, fire engine, fund tanker. Where
So
were all
all of those,
transfers?
all of those monies go to those funds, Anne, and they're sitting in the funds to be used. The only one that does not go to a fund is contingency. It's sitting there as a negative,
I see that's
waiting
not
to
there yet.
potentially be
Okay.
used.
So, so then things like the tree removal fund has $50,000 in it. The building main fund has 100,000 in it.
No,
Yeah,
that just
mine has
means that's how
100,000.
much money, that just means that's how much money was budgeted in this year to add
Mhm.
into those funds.
Okay, so that was added in then. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Yes, that is
Okay.
what was budgeted in this fiscal year to go into
Mhm.
those capital funds. It's not the
Okay, so
current
those,
balance.
those funds all received that money when it was transferred. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
So just for your understanding, under 59020, the AES Capital Fund, the Board of Finance, not the Board of Selectmen, transferred $100,000 into that fund to be made available to the AES Capital Fund to spend on its potential capital needs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, anybody else with any questions for the treasurer's report? Okay. So we're gonna move on to the tax collector's report. Does anybody have any issues with tax collector's report? Eric, one thing that I'd like to do with the tax collector's report is I'd like you to get the information on personal property taxes that are unpaid and do a better job. We need to get with the tax collector and make sure that we understand those taxes and also the taxes related to vehicles that are unpaid, because those are the taxes that she should be really moving toward collecting as much as possible, because those are problematic when people either go bankrupt or are not paying us those bills. I know what you've said in the past, that it's great when people don't pay their taxes on real property. I have no problem with that, but on all the other items, I think we should sit there and make a more concerted effort on collection. And we don't have that much, to be really honest, but it is something that we should know about.
I mean, generally, we get the motor vehicles for the majority of cases because you can't register a vehicle if you have unpaid taxes. So we may get them a year or two late, but we almost always collect that. The only ones we're not collecting on is the people that are cooking the books by continually moving around registration for vehicles among all their family members' names. And there are a few of those.
Those items are the ones in my head that we need to do a better job or focus on collecting those. I understand the real estate because you're not going to, I mean, I didn't notice a lot of liens on the delinquent report. And well, actually there are some there, but I also chuckled that my wife was on the list, which she shouldn't be, but I figure that's a bookkeeping issue. So, and it's kind of sad that there's one item and I make the top 10 list or whatever it is. So, okay. Excellent. It's always interesting to look through the list of people on the property tax list. I love that. Yep. Okay. So, anybody have any questions related to the tax collector's reports?
No, but there was something that I forgot to bring up when we were doing Eric's report that I went over when I was going over Jay's monthly report. I noticed that he was gonna have a meeting with Distinctive. And I just wanted to mention to Eric now that there's another player in town with a tree removal service that has all the same equipment as Distinctive, and it's Carabetta. They took the state contract from Distinctive now, so you should be getting prices. They're working with municipalities also.
Well, since you're on that topic, Scott, are we still anticipating Eric working with Eversource on a program?
We did have a long meeting, with Eversource. We asked them to collaborate with us on, major tree removal on, Burnap Brook Road. The long and the short of it is they're not willing to collaborate with us on that one. However, they did put all of Burnett Brook on their enhanced clearing list. So most of the things we were planning on doing, and they marked a lot of stuff on both sides of the road. So I think we're gonna get them to pay for the majority of what needs to be done on the road as opposed to splitting it 50-50. So, and I think that's a political thing on their end. Like, they couldn't collaborate with us, but they could accomplish the same thing by adding that to their enhanced tree trimming list and make it their responsibility. So overall, I'm quite pleased with that.
Okay. Right. Anybody else, any other issues they want to bring up before we start moving? Well, we have to deal with the tax collector's refund request. So 13D, page 135 of 163. There's $2,128.24 of refund of excess payments. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 certificate of corrections, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Board of Assessment appeals. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so would someone like to make that motion?
You have it right in front of you, Jeff, right?
Yeah, I do. You know how much I like these, Scott.
You hate them.
I do. I make a motion to approve the tax refunds in a total of $2,128.24.
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
I just have one point to make. If you look at that list, you'll notice that there's 2 people that are on the BAA that got reductions by the BAA.
Yes, and I'm sure they recused themselves, and I'm sure you could sit there and go to the minutes and see that they did that.
I'm sure they did too.
Okay, so any further discussions on that? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Or nothing. Okay, so let's move on to departmental reports. Does anyone have any questions related to any of the department reports? And I know Scott already asked a question about Public Works. So the building department generated $5,757.70 of total permits. And now is that using the new program, Eric?
It is in effect.
And when did it go into effect?
The day after the last meeting.
So about 15 days of this would be new potentially new permits. Okay, so let's sit there and see what happens in November. Okay, anybody else with any questions for any of these reports that were provided? So we had the building department, we had Public Works, we had the library, and we had the registrar of voters.
I will say on the registrar of voters, and early voting in general, we did have a really high turnout of people who exercised their right to early voting. I think it was something like 38% of the registered voters voted early voting. And we had the highest voter turnout we've had, I think, that I know of. So from an election standpoint, we had excellent participation by the citizens of the town of Andover.
93%. That's phenomenal. There's a reason why you want to do things at those. You got people to participate, which I think is phenomenal. I also do think that everyone that sees Wally and Linda Derrick needs to thank them for all their hard work, because that was not easy. 2 weeks of early voting, and the effort they put forth needs to be applauded. So
They got paid by a grant, Eric?
So
I talked to Wally about it. He said that they paid, the majority of it was paid through a grant.
Correct. So when the state first implemented early voting, they set aside money for all the towns. They supplemented this general election with, I think, a $2,000 grant. So that paid for a big chunk of the salary for the early elections.
Nice.
So the question is, are they going to continue with early voting? Or are they going to allow their absentee ballot rules now to take effect? Because if not, they're not going to give us another grant. They're going to make us pay for all of the early voting requirements.
Understood. And I don't think we're going to know. I think it sounds to me like legislatively, and this could be wrong because this is just talking to Krog's lobbyist about how they think this is going. But what they think they're going to do is just shrink and not have so many days of early voting, but definitely keep some early voting along with the more permissive absentee balloting is what they think is going to happen. But whether the legislature does that or not, or the Secretary of State's office does that or not, don't know.
I still think it's 93% is pretty good compared to what we've gotten in prior voting cycles. So
very good.
Okay,
we've tended to run in the mid 80s for normal presidential cycles, but 93% is pretty awesome.
Yeah. I was surprised at how cramped it was for the early voting. It just seemed like we should have given them a bigger room or something. I mean, there was nobody else waiting when I went, but it was just very, very cramped to get down there and sign in and then go and vote in the vault, and it was all sorts of stuff. I thought we would have had them in the new community center or something like that, or in the community room, one or the other.
Okay. Anybody else on any other issues? Okay, any correspondence, Eric? Item 15?
Nope, none that I know of.
All right, public speak, item 16. I'll start with Beata Godomsky.
No, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, Bill Penn. Bill, if you can unmute and you want to talk, I'll come back to you if you want to. Put your hand up. Stephen King.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something you discussed about Asplin and Eversource. I spoke to the planner who's been on Burnett Brook. From a standpoint of safety, they're starting in about 2 weeks. They're taking a significant amount of trees down, and considering the amount of bicyclists, runners, and walkers that we have, you might want to just make everybody aware of what's going on down here. There's a lot of trees coming down.
Okay. Thank you. Joanne Ebert.
Yep, just real quick, I wanted to wish you guys all luck as you continue your search for your new board member. I know you've had, as I've said before, good candidates come forward and a lot more that have put their hat in the ring too. It's great to see everybody wanting to give, service to their town. And then just a quick point on the community center director position that was spoken about tonight. I just hope truthfully that you keep her involved in all aspects of the building. I think it's important that as, the director, she's involved in, all three of those big categories that Eric brought up. If we took one away, I just think that would be unfortunate. I think that everyone can work together. It was presented to the town that way last year when you were hiring for that new position. So again, I'm disappointed it's not full time like it was supposed to be, but that being said, I just think it's important that she has her hat in all three items. Thank you.
Linda Armstrong. Okay, we'll move on from that. Carol Lee.
I'm all set, thank you.
All right. Alicia Lee. Okay, I'll come back to you, Lisa. Liz Lokech.
I'm all set. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
All right, I'll come back to Alicia. Alicia, anything? Okay. Excuse me. Bill Penn, one more shot. Linda Armstrong, one more shot. Okay. Item 17, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Excellent. Who seconded that? Ann, you gonna second that?
I second it, yeah.
Ann has seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.